Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Play Day 4 here at XGS. Caught the two games earlier, Outlast Black versus Makers, as well as Sesh versus Final Form, and two great matches. Apparently some very interesting results that we've heard so far, but now you're here with me, Swan, joined by one of my favorite individuals on this earth, Ali. How are we doing on this evening, Ali?
Well, it'll be a good time, right? I casted both of these, or all four of the teams are gonna cast tonight on the first day, but that also means my job's easier because I have notes that I can just pull up and reference, which is pretty cool, and it saves me a lot of work, and it makes me sound smarter, which is always a bonus.
A+. Bonus points for sounding smarter, but I hope you sound smart about tonight's game that we have first off, which is going to be ARIAL versus the UNCs. And as much as I am personally a little bit of an ARIAL fanboy, I won't lie, I have to give respect to the UNCs here. They have been making waves throughout XGS so far. They are currently 2-0. They've taken some very strong names so far in the series.
Yeah, this roster has been quite difficult to deal with for a lot of teams, and they also have Engage playing with them today, who is someone that I know personally and is a pretty solid shot caller and can bring a lot of strategic depth to the teams he's on, which is something that I think will benefit them a lot, because when I casted them, the strategy wasn't really all there some rounds, and a lot of rounds was just like some guy on one team would have to win a 1 versus 3 in order to win things out, or just come down to like 1v1 consistently. So just being able to shore up the strategy, add a little bit of structure, and add some cohesion, that can go a long way, especially when you have people like Scary and Zolaris and Sta, who are very capable gunners.
Yeah, and I think kind of shoring down those brief points where sometimes you aren't relying on that gun skill and leaning more into a more macro mentality into your planning is definitely going to be needed, especially against a team like ARIAL, who we've seen ARIAL play forever. They've been around the block. They are a seasoned team, and they have this kind of stop-and-go mentality to them on maps of, okay, we're going to strategically take a lot of space here. We're going to shut it down, completely stop down our gameplay, reset, redrone, get the information, find the gap, and hopefully for them, find a pick. And that's something they're really good at scaling off of. And speaking of ARIAL, I think it's time we take a look at their roster as well. Epic, Kiru, Snake, Inrio, and Brios. They're all household names at this point. Snake has had some insane moments as he's shifted onto this roster. I won't say recently, but within more recent times is how I'm going to word it, and he's been a great addition to the roster. Obviously, Snake has had T1 experience and is going to supplement the strategy that we see ARIAL bring in every single map.
Yeah, he went to a major with TSM a while ago, which is no small thing. He also played for LG, I believe, which means you survived Mossy-Zilla, which not all of us say.
You poor soul.
If you've queued Staff Hub, you will know what I mean. But they also have Epic, which is different from the Veleno they had when I casted them previously, because Poison stepped away from the roster recently to just kind of take a break and refocus himself so he can come back stronger later. So they kind of been trialing this 5th spot just on these game days, just to kind of see what works, and today they want to see if Epic works out, and if it's who I'm thinking of, was on Phantom Legion, and he was a pretty solid player for them. He had a lot of good moments. We'll have to see if that translates to ARIAL and things being better for them.
And speaking of transferring to the game here, let's take a look at our map bans. Me and you were pretty excited when we heard what the map bans look like, because Cafe and Clubhouse have been removed, which have made up, I think the stat was like 9 of the 15 maps played so far have been Clubhouse and Cafe within this season of XGS. So very happy to see a little bit of a change up, but nothing too crazy. Chalet, a map that's been in the pool a handful of times. Most of the time it's been like a map 3 decider, and we really haven't gotten there yet, or it's occasionally been a map 2. I can't quite remember what game that was, but I remember it was played as a map 2 that I personally casted myself. So definitely a strong map, definitely one that is going to be very familiar to both. I think the UNCs are going to be on a little bit of a shorter foot here, if I'm going to be honest. I think ARIAL has played Chalet more than enough times, and we've seen them play Chalet, but that also could potentially be a weakness for them. If the UNCs have done their homework, they're going to analyze ARIAL's strategy and potentially be able to work around it.
Yeah, Chalet is also a map that is a little bit more default, which just kind of levels the playing field by default. It's not something like Bank or the dreaded Cafe we've had several times, where if a team is more sound strategically, it's very easy to run away with that game just off of the fact that you're kind of having to push into something that is very well set up without having that kind of system to fall back on of your own. So just that level playing field should provide something that's fairly interesting for us to watch here, and especially with, like I said, Engage coming on to the Unks, he can potentially bring a lot of that strategy that can help level it even more, which means we should have a pretty good game on our hands.
So I say, I think we've been told too that Engage is Matt Siege, who if you know Matt Siege, then you know Matt Siege. I personally am missing the memo on that one, but we will make sure to refer to him properly because making sure players have the right names is very important to us here. Nonetheless, the match is about to start, and I think you're absolutely right in the idea of this map is more default. So while Aerial Arise has some stones that they haven't moved in a very, very long time when it comes to the strategy on this map, extending to that third floor, making sure they hold it and lock it down on that defensive side, but also taking those split pushes on basement for their attack and really providing pressure on the defense, it's something that the Unks could very easily see coming here, but also because this map is so default, it allows the Unks to kind of maybe work in a palette that Aerial Rise isn't expecting, right? It gives them an opportunity to shift away from that default, make some interesting or risky plays that against a seasoned team like this could actually prove really, really beneficial. It's just weighing that risk to reward ratio and the timing of it all.
It's also going to be a lot of how Aerial Arise is able to adapt if Unks try to pull out something expected. Like if everyone starts to flood up from the basement, for example, on a bar defense, is Aerial equipped right now to read into that very quickly and then rotate the pieces they need? Because they did lose Poison, who was the de facto IGL for that team, and that is, something that I talked about the last time I casted them. But that's because it is such an important piece to lose. You have this long-time strategic figure that's on this team, and then recently he's departed, along with their coach Wumbo. So a lot of that kind of thing has to change for Ariel, and that creates an opportunity for Ungs to get the edge over them just by pulling out things that might be more difficult to deal with without a figure like that.
Right, they've almost caught Aerial Arise in a little bit of a weak point, I guess, in their timeline here as a team for Siege. Of you lose a player like Poison, do we know who's picked up the role of IGL then in this moment?
I have no idea.
All right, well then that can stay up in the air for now, but nonetheless, that responsibility is going to have to fall onto somebody's shoulders, whether it be their more recent pickup of Epic that we talked about, who's played the last few games with them, but even then, if that seems to be working, it's mostly just trying to fall back into a rhythm or strictly relying on what you know, right? Of not falling into the habits of having that old roster because things can change in an instant. You lost Poison, Wumbo's moved on, and now you're kind of going back to, okay, we had this normal theme set in place for every match. We had this comfortable algorithm that we could follow, but now it's time to just return to the individual strategy here of I know myself as a player, I know that we're going to be perfectly fine, and I have to rely on my teammates to have that same logic and pretty much go autopilot in knowing that we have the strategy and capabilities to not get thrown off here.
Yeah, if I recall, it was one like I haven't checked, which after this game, I'll probably just DM someone from the rest and say like, "Hey, yo, what's up?" But just based off intuition, and imagine it's probably like in Rio, maybe. He's just kind of on the right role to do it, and he is, to my knowledge, a more vocal player. But it could be any of it. It could just be like the old Aerial Res Academy, where there's not like a de facto IGL necessarily. It's just kind of whoever has the idea that round, whoever holds the talking stick. However, we do have bans to get into, which we can look at now that we have been sent to the game. We'll have those in just a second.
I like the idea of a talking stick. Talking stick IGL. No, no, no. My shot call. I have the talking stick. Here's what the play is. It's a very, very funny mental image. Nonetheless, we're going to see Ying taken off the board. Completely expected. Very good operator for opening things up, clearing that space, especially in the power areas on this map, in areas like basement, where you're wanting to flash out connector, maybe flash out blue. Dokubi as well serves the same purpose, just information on that roam game. And with this map being so extensive, it makes sense to see her take off.
Valk as well is another pretty common ban on this map, just because there are so many like crazy places that you can stick the cameras that are very difficult to spot, but also provide tons and tons of information. So it makes it very difficult to go anywhere without having information on you at all times, and so just the Unks not wanting to see that makes a lot of sense. Just as Ariel Arise wanting to ban out that Fenrir makes a lot of sense, is he makes it very easy to shore up gaps without having to stick a person on them. And even if it is like something that you're actively watching, just having to take a gunfight by walking into a thing that blinds you while the person shooting at you isn't blind makes it very easy to win that gunfight. And so Ariel want to take that off the board, so when Unks get to defense, they are not able to use it.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on Valkyrie real quick before we get in the game here. She has a 93% ban rate this season of XGS. I've
Wow.
looked before the game. So many teams are trying to make sure that information game is being at least crated a little bit and locked away in a box because she's just so strong, and that percentage just speaks to the quality and impact she can bring for a team. Aerial Rise, though, their first round, starting off on the defense here against the Unks, they're going to be heading to the mid-floor, kitchen and dining. Some teams like to head upstairs first, but Ariel's going to be comfortable anywhere, and it seems so far with the operator lineup that they're bringing, it's going to be a pretty default hold. You have the zombie to go upstairs, you have that warden playing on site to potentially lock it down in case that utility comes through, smoke canisters from the main breach, whatever you may need. Aerial Rise lineup looking good here.
It's pretty default so far, which I mean, it does kind of make sense, and something wrong with that. I'm interested to see how this Kali from Zolaris ends up being used as you gotta troll with it and just stick yourself up on that like tower outside of the big window and see if someone crosses your path, but it's likely the case so far. You have Dead kind of peeking into the top floor here just to see if someone will expose themselves, but so far everyone's remaining pretty safe as you don't really need to give up those picks, and you do need to hold on to the top floor in order to prevent the attack from just taking over Vert. Plus you can hold the entirety kitchen from the top floor, so they're just going to remain stalwart here and just chill out.
Hiru, Epic, and Snake all on that top floor. Scary. Looking to maybe find a contact on the solar stairs here, the Grimbees. I don't know if they're going to spot him out in the corner, if they actually are going to be able to find him. And now that's kind of him just locked away in a box right now. Is it going to be a down through the floor? No. He's going to go prone, avoid the shots through Big Car Garage there, and there is no actual hard breach on the side of the Unks whatsoever. So they're going to be relying on picks and pacing to make it in the site here. Finally taking out Kiro on those stairs. She was locked in a pretty hard position, but it's going to be quickly traded. And now, with nearly half the clock gone, it's an even man count on both sides.
You see this Kali looking into this owl position. Inra's going to get a pick onto Dead, so that gives the man advantage over to his team. It's also the Nomad taken off of the board. And then Stug getting killed off on that Capitao as well. That could do a lot of damage to the execute utility that Unks wanted, especially with all these Grimbees being used before they've actually reached the site. Scary is going to get downed and then finished off as well by Brios, who's on a 2k this round. Or excuse me, he's finished off 2 people. Enrio's got another kill, 3 kills for him.
Oh
Brios does finish off 1 in the end. And that's Ariel just taking a pretty convincing round, largely by just remaining stalwart and keeping their opponents out of the map.
That is a crazy shot from Brios. And
now that is.
Yeah, I would agree. It looked pretty simple on the side of Ariel there. The Unks had a really good setup to try and clear the smoke in the on Solar Stairs, but after that it all kind of fell apart, it seems. Not even that it was sloppy from the Unks or the take wasn't thought out or it was bad. Ariel was just ready for it. From the start of that round when that big window was open and they were trying to get that crossfire set up onto site, followed by the Grimbees on Solar, Aerial Rise had a pretty much guaranteed idea of what to take from Unks was going to be. Try and clear these windows, maybe get a pick, and then work your way in through the top floor with that supporting player on the trophy window holding the cutoff. And because Aerial Rise had that set in stone, and the Unks really didn't shift anything around even after losing that pick, or not even losing the pick, but just getting the trade onto stuff from Ariel, it made it really difficult for them to find their footing again. You've lost one of your players, you're losing the utility after the Capitale's gone down, and more importantly, you've burned a lot of your clock to only kill one player, but not have much space to show for it. So, good discipline there from ARIAL Arise, and I liked the idea from the Unks, it's just also reading into how ARIAL's going to respond to that.
Yeah, they did just kind of try to push into not necessarily exactly what ARIAL wanted, but something that ARIAL was very, very prepared for, and there wasn't really an effort to make ARIAL move out of these spots, aside from Kiru sitting on solar stairs, and he wasted so much time just by hitting his prone key that it didn't really matter. And even when he died, a Capitao was traded along with him, which is a ton of utility off of the board, so he's going to be more than happy with that. Seeing a lot of solar pressure this round as well for this master take, and if they and that does worry me a little bit, because they had trouble taking control of master when that wasn't the site, when there wasn't as much emphasis being placed on it, but now that's where most of the emphasis from ARIAL is going to be placed, because it is the actual site itself.
An ambitious Brio's hop over. Fortunately, did not get caught on the timing there. Looking toward that trophy window. It's going to be an early swing toward the solar window. Scary's going to find Brios. That should open up the hole in trophy, potentially for a player from the Unks to creep up on through. But you're exactly right. There is so much manpower shifted toward this side, but the pixel angle from the bathroom window, a literal pixel, is going to be found by Zolaris. It's going to be 2 from the bathroom window. The bolt action absolutely locking it down. Scary. Taken out by Kiro, making sure that that pressure on the solar side isn't being felt yet. And he's going to be tucked away in this corner, but if Zolaris hops in here, it's going to open up a huge gap for ARIAL Arise. He can watch Kiro perfectly fine, and Enrio really needs to help his teammate out here. Matt Siege, able to finally take that space solar, and now they should have free real estate on a site. It's the defuser going down on the default plant spot. They still have to worry about Zolaris holding that crossfire. Walks in through a closet, finds the headshot onto Sta. I don't know if he knows the other players there. Whips it around, finds the head of Zolaris. The one-hit barricade, it's the weave for Enrio. He's spraying at the bomb. Can't find the contact. The last player standing. The dream was alive for Enrio. 3 kills in his pocket, but not enough ammo in his magazine. Oh my god.
Fortunately, not the clutch of our dreams that we're going to see. Very, very good attempt, very good awareness from Enrio as well, just to kind of figure out where those different players were going to be and just pick up those fights one at a time. There was a lot of, many different things that led to that round going the way it did, but I think the most obvious one to look at is kind of, why did 2 people run in front of the view that was being held of that bathroom window, right? The first one, sure, whatever, you don't know it's there. The second one, person running across that same angle, it's not a mistake you want to repeat twice, and it leads to ARIAL losing that round. Now that is, they're tied 1-1, right, and it's not the end of the world, but just little mistakes like that are something they want to make sure they're not giving into. And a lot of over-aggression from Brios as well threw his life away, basically for free. They didn't really have a whole lot trying to push him out there, at least not that I could see, aside from the 2 players that were on solar, and he was, given that he's Omai, fairly safe from what they were trying to do. So this round, kind of what I want to see from ARIAL is just shoring up those little mistakes they're making that are leading into these big results, and not having to put Enrio in a situation where he has to 1v4 to win them the round.
Yeah, try to limit the space that the Unks can take here. If we look back to round 1, ARIAL had that little trade moment, but the Unks had no room to work with. Where, as opposed to that round, as soon as the Unks had the space on the solar side, they hit the site almost to perfection. Kira was trapped in a corner, Zolaris was holding the cutoff on the other side, and they could plant Master for free. So, really trying to control the space that the Unks are getting as we move over to bar games here. It's looking like it's going to be a little bit of pressure toward the site itself initially. Scary maybe trying to find a pick, put some pressure onto the idea that maybe they are just going to take directly, but more importantly, worried about that's a library take up top right now and the insane amount of utility that's been committed to it.
It's a 3rd opening pick in a row for Ung so far. And it's on to Enrio as well, who has been the top fragger for ARIAL Arise so far. Aside from that, though, seeing a lot of utility being used in a couple different places around the map. Mirror window is being taken out, or just different places of cover being taken out by the attack before they go in for this rush play. But Kiro has the better pick on that. Rios as well gets a pick onto Engage. And just like that, the man count flip-flops perfectly, and Aerial Arise find themselves up top.
That is definitely not what you want if you are a fan of the Unks. You've put yourself in a very bad position. It's going to be a third for Kiro. Pretty much for free on that one. Snake's going to make sure he's watching the head of Dead as he makes his way in through the fireplace doorway. There's really not much they could do because of the strategy they were banking on there, right? They were trying to bank on that rush plant and trying to make sure, like, oh, if we can make this work, we can, I wouldn't necessarily say force this, but this is the strategy we're going for, and there's really nothing in our minds that's going to have us change that. But Kira was so ready for that. That angle was completely locked down. I don't know if it was a missed drone, a lack of information on the site, but if you're the Youngs, you almost have to be aware of Kiro or somebody, not just him, but anybody on Aerial Arise holding for that, right? As well as the fact that you committed some net utility upstairs only for it to not really be fully utilized. You're burning the Ash Charge upstairs to try and clear the Azawi barricades, committing to this rush plant anyway, and then your final two players don't even have any contact on that top floor at all. It's almost the question of, do we just commit to the site or go for the split idea? It just seemed a little disorganized there from the Younks. Not the worst round in the world, definitely a struggle, but a little bit disorganized.
Yeah, usually when you see like a rush like that, you have like just something prepared to stop that player from doing exactly what he does. Although I do wonder if Kiru just, like you said, kind of read into the fact that they're going to do it and just pushed up a little bit so they couldn't catapult him or smoke him off properly. But that attack just, it's a little bit too one-dimensional for what Ariel is prepared to deal with. They put all their eggs in the jumping inside of games into the plant down basket, and when Kiru is so prepared for that, it puts everyone else in a terrible position since they have to pick up the pieces of that fallen round. And when they were trying to do that, when they were having to kind of put themselves out a little bit more to do that, Rios is able to pick up a little bit more. And from that point, it's not much you can do. We're going to a new site this round, though. We're seeing basement for the first time, which means we're seeing Ram for the first time as well. You see a pre-place a drone by the main door as the wall is being opened on main. And it looks like they want to go for a smoke plant and then rush in again. They do have a blitz for it this time, which hasn't worked because Inria's gotten that pick.
Yeah, and with Stud down, the diffuser is going to go down in turn. Brio's hopping out of that library window. There's no Claymore to stop him. Not quite able to convert it into a pick, though. And now, Aerial Rise is on the clock. They only have 35 seconds to find 4 of the remaining players of the Unks who have a pretty stalwart position outside of this breach. Epic. Gonna start defusing a swing from the right side. Tried to clear Dead earlier, wasn't quite able to find him. Pre-fires from Inrio. Gonna be able to pick up 2. Still has to stick though. Snake holding his cross. Claymore finds the pick upstairs, and he's gonna have to wide swing out of the breach, and it is disaster for Aerial Arise. The Unks teaching them a lesson after what we thought was a struggling attack shows the passion and fury that they can have.
Honestly, that Blitz just rushing in so fast, even though he died, he did force everyone in Ariel who is inside of that kind of wine and connector area to just stop everything they were doing and focus entirely on making sure they didn't get any farther and making sure that they didn't die. And that allows someone to just waltz in and plant inside of that smoke. And retaking that position when you have so much space outside is a very difficult thing for the defense. And Unks hold it perfectly. They just wait for Ariel to have to get to that diffuser and to start planning to swing and take those fights on both the cover and the players that are planning as well. And they just rely on the fact that Ariel has been put in that terrible position by the plant they got down, right? So this time, the quick plant off of the breach actually does work very well.
On top of that, I want to talk about the Blitz for a second. While Stud didn't have much impact in the terms of, oh, I am Blitz, I run in and get kills, he did have huge impact in creating a bubble for that diffuser to get put down in the first place. On top of the, I think it was 4 smokes that were dropped on that breach, having Stud run through and create that pressure line to maybe give the idea of, hey, not only are we planting diffuser, but we're extending way deeper into site than you thought. It made Aerial Rise wait just a little bit longer. Heading back down here to Dining, though, they're going to see a change up on the roster from the Unks. They are going to bring the hard breach this time. They hadn't last round. They were attacking this site. It was the issue of trying to deal with that top floor, and having that hard breach is going to open up another avenue for them to attack and create space against Ariel. And there's going to be a little bit of chip damage found on Brios as well.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to try to take things more in a library over fashion, which is pretty typical for this site. And that allows them to have a lot more footing inside of the actual building itself, which makes Ariel getting aggressive and holding onto the space a lot more challenging. And plus, like you said, that thermite opening up that office wall creates another avenue to do that. And one of the first points of contact they're going to have to deal with is going to be Brios, who is on very low HP right now because of that attempted spawn peek. So just off of this one change in where they want to attack from, Unks have found themselves in a much better position than they did previously.
Is there 4 Aerial Rise players upstairs right now? I think there... if my eyes are not deceiving me and my outlines are being true, there are... Yes, there are. This top floor is almost a necessity for the attack here. If you want to get that diffuser down on the main breach downstairs, you can't afford to have these vertical holes looking up. But they're meeting a wall that is Ariel. I say that. Scary. It's going to get his kill onto Kiru. Traded out by Snake. That Siege from Alert all the way on the other side of the map. The main breach downstairs is going to be opened, and Aerial Rise has to fight for control up top right here. If they can lock that down, it makes it impossible for that main breach downstairs to have any impact whatsoever. But they're still being met with such heavy resistance. A few flashbangs going to that half-wall side. The Grimbees are going to try and locate any defenders holding close. He's not going to see anything. He runs in. It's 3 for Snake on the round. They're just feeding him right now. Dead. Able to trade it out, but it's not going to be enough for him. Epic alone downstairs. His teammates trying to hold up top. Snake able to get 3, and he's still alone in a 1v2. Not only is the top floor breach open, but so is the one directly in front of him.
Sitting and waiting behind this half wall. They know where he is, and he has a good idea where they are as well. With the drone going in, he's going to confirm all of these suspicions as he just looks to sit and wait. Frag grenade is going to force him out of position as these attackers just look to pelt him with utility and make him uncomfortable. Swings for the first, hits the flick on it, but he doesn't get the second. A great attempt, but Unks have found themselves on top in this game.
He had me hoping there for a second, I won't lie. That flick, I thought he might be able to turn right and find the other, but the Unks, man, I think that switch up of just bringing the thermite, changing their avenue of attack, going to that library side over, had a huge difference on how Aerial Rise was able to lock that down. Obviously, you had that pressure still from Big Window. It was opened a little bit early, but opening that office wall and then playing toward that mezzanine area, it pushed Aerial Rise so much farther back on the top floor than they wanted to be. And on top of that, being able to take that space in Piano, find that trade on Breach, it eventually all shakes out to put the Unks in an advantageous position. Snake did get 3 there. You did give up a couple of bodies trying to take the space in Piano, which was a risky play and definitely put Aerial Rise back in the game. But overall, the macro strategy there from the Unks of let's shift the perspective, let's shift the lineup, make sure we're bringing the right utility for the right job here instead of hoping that the plan we have in mind is going to work, and being able to adapt mid-game and more importantly mid-round. Really impressive stuff there, and it is going to eventually here give them the lead in this match against Ariel so far.
I got another thing I want to mention about that previous round is there were a couple Ariel players that were in positions that were a little too aggressive for their own good. Like Andrew specifically being the opening pick there, had positioned himself on that little like cabinet by the wall inside of office. And then when he tried to get back when the wall was open, there's just a player waiting for him, and that's not a good gunfight for him to take at all. And it forces everyone else into a very awkward position up on the top floor, and Brios as well, just being isolated behind that half wall with that wall open. There's not a whole lot he can do there for himself, and it forces Snake into a hero position, which he does almost win, but by that point, just too many dominoes had fallen for Ariel in order for them to kind of have any staying power in that round. However, though, given that there is a mirror window on this mezzanine area now, though, the attack has been halted a little bit from the Unks, so we'll see if that affects things.
Oh
but
God,
Scary's going to get the opening pick, and yet again, Arial have to fight from the back foot.
Yeah, losing Brios there is not what you want. We've seen him, in all honesty, out of position a couple of times now so far, trying to fight up on those solar stairs earlier, and in these power positions, he's just not having the impact I think we would hope for trying to fight against the UNCs here. Still, all is not lost for Arial, though. That mirror window is going to go to the wayside. You're going to regain mezzanine control here if you're the UNCs and start working your way towards site. But they have such a good utility hold on the rest of the objective. Arial Arise, that is, with these zombie barricades. Although Dead is going to find the head of Epic, putting Arial Rise even deeper into the trench that's being dug for them so far. And now you're really relying on that mirror window toward the backside to not only guarantee the safety of that position, but if you're Arial, you have to be aware of that this hit's going to come soon. They've gotten 2 picks. They know where the player on piano is, and in all honesty, have a little bit of intuition as to where the other 2 are playing. Snake's gonna get caught with his pants down in the open. It's 2 for Scary. He's been so good at finding the right timings and the tempos in these rounds. Kiro able to trade him out. Is it the bathroom window angle again that he gets down by? I'm not actually sure where he got down from. That Siege up the solar stairs. Gonna get down by the Mira, and Idrio's now effectively in a 1v3. The diffusers put all the way back on that default plant. Maybe potentially looking for the res on his teammate. He is going to finish off Mad Siege now. An official 1v3 right now. Crossing toward that Piander side. Sprays toward the Azami barricade. Not quite being able to find the head of Zolaris. It's a back and forth. Dead finishes off Kira with the bleed out, and Zolaris finds the head of Inrio to close out another round in favor of the UNCs.
So you got a lot of individual... I mean, so just first of all, the opening picks right now, as things go, are 5-1 in favor of the UNCs, right? And they didn't convert one of those, but when you're having that opening pick every round, that drastically increases your odds of winning, and especially when you're taking out people like Brios, who normally are fragging powerhouses for Arial, it just puts you in such a good position. And we're seeing a lot of those happen because Arial players are putting themselves out of position. Brios trying to aggress way too far into live raid that round. Previously, he'd aggressed too far up the solar stairs. And there was another round where Rio aggresses too far into office. And all of these missed positions, this poorly calculated aggression, is leaving Arial in continual man disadvantages. And it puts the other players in positions where they have to do more of that poorly calculated aggression because you have to get the picks back. Otherwise, the UNCs are just going to run away with the round and just walk all over Arial. And this cycle that we've seen ourselves in has been really damaging for Arial to deal with.
We come on to the half here, though. Arial's going to start their attacking side, hopefully with a little bit more success. Those opening picks have been going to the wayside of the UNCs. They've been effectively controlling the pace because of that. After they've taken down Brios the past few rounds, it's been a slow burn, but they usually pick up another and then have the opportunity to hit site with a very, very heavy show of force. So hopefully for Arial Rise here and their lineup as they attack kitchen dining here is going to be what I talked about even before this game even started. That methodical playstyle of, okay, we've taken space, now it's time to pause, re-drone, get the information, take space again, re-drone, get the information. This strategic play that we see from them so consistently is needed now more than ever as they attack the site.
A little bit of chip damage done to Dead early on as there's a little bit of engagement with Snake, but nothing that results in death. Kira's gonna start getting this office wall open, which is gonna put a lot of pressure on the top floor. Now, it doesn't look like Arial really wants to control all the top floor, just enough of it that they can get a plant inside of dining. But that does mean they have to contend with Scary, or excuse me, Matt Siege, or Engage as he's more commonly known, playing inside of office. So they do need to clear a little bit of this out. And doing so efficiently is going to be the name of the game here. They don't want to let him linger in this spot for too much longer.
Utility committed. Name thrown. Brios finds the head of Matt Siege. That is a heavy weight lifted off the shoulders of the Arial Rise attack. They know there should be one more upstairs, maybe potentially two. They were playing 3 up top themselves, but they're going to make sure they have so much due diligence set in place to make sure that Scary here isn't going to have much impact. They just need that main breach open, and they need him to not be able to hold this default plant. I think they're droning it out right now. They have the Osa shield set up for the cutoff, and it looks like they're droning site at the moment. It's just the issue of clearing this Kaid Claw that's slowing them down.
going to be a little bit of a process here, so they have to figure out where it is and then figure out how they want to deal with it. Snake, though, is going to make that a little bit easier with his pick onto Sta. That's another huge weight lifted off of Ariel's shoulders. And now with this cutoff that Ariel's going to hold, things are going to get just a little bit easier if they actually manage to get this wall open.
That's the question, though, if they manage to get this wall open. Osa creeping up Ivy here. No connecting shots to anywhere besides that bottom of that shield. Inrio trying to keep his ankle safe, and they've yet to deal with this mirror window. ARIAL Rise looked so good at the start of this round, having so much control of the top floor, but with 10 seconds left on the clock, the main breach still closed, and so much utility to walk through. It's looking scary for them. Kiru finds the kill onto Dead. Scary getting a nitro for himself, and it's a flurry of bullets that eventually allow ARIAL Rise to take the round. They had me worried for a moment, I won't lie. The timer definitely was a concern, but they doubled up there in the end, were able to isolate those picks, so great work from ARIAL there to try and bring this back to an even game.
Yeah, it's a little bit like watching old Vitality or like the 20-second meta where things look like they're getting down to the wire and you're like, how can they possibly get into the site? And then all of a sudden, 6 people are dead and the attackers have won the round. So great stuff from ARIAL Rise to kind of play into that playstyle like you were talking about, right? Take a little bit of space, just hold things up, drone a little bit, get the picks you need, and just go through this cycle as the round goes on. So they're not just walking into the things the UNCs want them to, they're taking the time and piecing up this defense so they can actually take this space and start getting things done effectively. And recently, Shelly's been trended a little bit more defender-sided, but historically it has been very attacker-sided, so a little bit of homage to the old days of this map, if you will.
Not only that, but I think it may potentially speak to this idea of the seasoned veteran versus the young gun, right? So, like, obviously the Youngs has some names on it. I'm pretty sure there's many people who know Mad Siege. I think I've heard the name Scary before. There's people on this roster who are good players, but it's the season idea here from ARIAL Rise. They've been in the game so long and have had so many great players, one of which we're going to lose off the bat. Scary. Starting things off very strong for the UMPs with a spawn peek onto Brios. We're talking about how he was kind of a powerful fragger for ARIAL Rise, and he's now going to have no impact, no lion scans on the board as they work to try and attack the bottom floor here.
Yeah, 6-2 for opening picks now, still in favor of the UMPs, pretty effectively as well. That's a great stat to have on your side, especially since it looked like Brios is kind of starting to figure things out a little bit last round with that beautiful push onto the player that was behind the UMPs half wall. It's also going to be the line taken off the board, which gives so much more freedom of movement to the UNCs, as there's no utility in place now to lock them in place if it's needed at any point in time. We do see a couple walls get open, we do see some ram drones go out and start making some vertical play, but there's a lot of unknowns here on this roam for ARIAL that they have to find and then dismantle in a good amount of time, because if they let Engage lurk up here enough and potentially get an opportune flank, that's a really dangerous thing when you're already down a player.
Spotting out the mirror in Barstock. They did lose track of Matt Siege, though. He's sneaked away all the way into Trophy, but it's going to be currently the Mira fighting for her life. Zolaris taking out Kiru. That's another pick toward the side of the Young. Sanrio trying to bring it back. Another trade, though, comes out, leaving us in a 2v4. Epic finally forcing his way to this bar area, but now it's almost too little too late. You've lost the ram, you have the ace on the board to potentially open up a breach, but then you're fighting into a wall of utility. There's the 4 Goyo cans that have yet to be popped so far, the mirror window in basement that's still going to be having so much impact as we get late into this round, and if you're ARIAL Rise, you're looking for a lifeline here, and in honesty, you're in desperate need of one if you want any chance of winning this round.
2 versus 4, 45 seconds left. Goyo canisters have started being popped here just to add a little bit of insult to injury and just fully keep ARIAL out of the site here. Everyone's pretty much fallen back, so they just kind of need to hold on to things and keep ARIAL from getting these picks one by one. You're going to start making the way into the site here, but is it enough, Swan?
It's gonna have to be if they want this round. A good shot from Inrio to start things off. A 2v3 is a winnable situation, but as I say that, the first step followed by a little bit of a stumble. Matt Siege, the lurker they left waiting at the beginning of this round, is gonna drop down the hatch right behind them when they least expect it. The Unks are looking in amazing form right now.
Yeah, they're looking really, really good here. It's been, I mean, it's been a very convincing game so far, especially just like I said, in that opening picks department, having 6 opening picks to 2 opening deaths is an absolutely phenomenal scoreline, even when they haven't converted all of them. Just the fact that they have that opening pick so consistently is beautiful for them, and their ability to re-aggress onto Arial and force them into these awkward positions and keep them from getting any sort of advantage. It's been really interesting to watch, unless you are an Arial fan, in which case my condolences. But it's also been highly, highly effective in just keeping the pace thoroughly being controlled by the Unks.
And there's almost the question of, and as much as I hate to make the point, but potentially if the Unks were underestimated here, they kind of showed up out of nowhere. From what I've heard, they were a team that plug stacked together, started playing some qualifiers, and now have made it up to this point and have had a great showing so far. And Ariel Rise, being the veteran that they are, maybe had a perspective of, oh, if we stick to our guns, play how we usually play, then it won't be an issue. And the Youngs is kind of saying here, no, we get to set the pace, we get to set the cadence, and we get to set the tone of this entire match so far. And that's effectively been what's happening. Ariel Rise has not been able to get comfortable from what it seems. They've clinched 3 rounds together in which, once they've traded back that first pick or had some good control, they have looked great. They've looked like the team we expect them to be, but the Unks have just consistently been so good at disrupting what Ariel is wanting to do. Whether it be with a cheeky spawn peek to open things off and take off one of the most consistent players on Ariel that we have, or if it's just continuing to lock down that top floor, holding a unique angle on bathroom that Ariel Rise wasn't expecting to find 2 picks. There's so many things that the Unks are doing that it seems Ariel hasn't been able to read into so far. So it's up to Ariel to look at that and adapt. They've been doing great so far. They've hit a few bumps in the road, but this is still in closing distance for Ariel here.
I mean, it's absolutely possible for them to even close this out of regulation if they can clean up these last few rounds of this half, or at least bring it to overtime, which isn't as many points, but winning a game is still certainly better than losing it. They just have to shore up those little mistakes and those gaps, which the Unks have been able to find consistently, and they need to stem a little bit of that aggression. Now we're going to Bar here, which provides a lot of different angles that Ariel can look to attack from, and a lot of other pressure they can provide depending on where they want to go here. And so for them to kind of win this round, they need to effectively utilize that pressure and apply it to whittle down these picks and kind of lean more into what they did in the first round with that step-by-step play that enables them to fall back if the aggression comes and make sure that they can't just get run over.
Now, my other worry for Ariel here is it feels like they've been fighting the timer this entire series so far. Of this very touch-and-go playstyle that they have of take position, gain information, advance. There hasn't been the opportunity to advance in a lot of cases. They've met so much resistance from the Unks that strategy has been very, very hard for them to convert rounds off of. So I like a little bit of this extension that we're seeing instead, trying to maybe push from a few different avenues, have a player sneak out a pick from a solo angle. And that's going to be epic on Mez right now, trying to clear out Zolaris not only on this Mira, but also the Kiba barricades that lock down this position. Ariel Rise wants Library here. They are bringing the Capital. It could potentially be a smoke planting games, or it could potentially be something like this Firebolt. Rios left on a sliver of HP as that Nitro Cell flies out the window.
Do they know there's no one inside of Dark Spot right now?
I don't think they do, because I think he's about to shoot the Firebolts anyway. But
Capital has a lot of very powerful utility. Really, you can use it to clear any of the power positions on this map, and using it out of positions you don't need to isn't going to be the look that Ariel wants to go for. A player inside a piano stops the Library jump in. They don't know he's there till it's too late. And as they go for these jump-ins and this aggression, Ariel are being shut down. They do get one of their own. But still, locked into 4 versus 4 now. They did get Rios up, but the HP advantage thoroughly has been implanted into the hands of the Unks.
The defense here, dotting their T's, crossing their I's. As soon as an advancement was made from Ariel there, it was immediately turned around. Matt Siege tried to find the gap there. Not Matt Siege, rather Epic. Upon my apologies. Tried to find the gap there, popped in on that Twitch with the 417, was quickly turned on by Zolaris. And now the Aerial Rise is once again in a little bit of a conundrum, right? You tried to get that advancement into library. You had Epic hop in through Mezzadine to gain that control, and sure, you're now making your way in here, but once again, the timer is your worst enemy. But Ariel being able to find a pick actually speaks wonders for what the Ariel can do for the rest of this round, and Kira's gonna supplement that even more with another kill. And I was worried about the clock, but now I'm worried for the Unks. What was an even man count situation has now been brought into a 4v2, and Aerial Rise is almost certainly about to hit the site here. They have no other option. Stop. Looking toward that hatch. Vector gonna spray from across, not gonna be able to connect the shots. Dead, on the other hand, upstairs is Sta. Catches the dropping player. It's a rotate down blue. Dead's gonna shut that down, though. Now it's a 1v2 and a pop-up trade from Sta. Aerial Rise, you thought you had it in the bag. 4v2 that is saved by the Unks.
Honestly, I think a lot of that, I mean, it was just kind of down to the fact that there was such a in the 4 versus 4, there was such a health deficit that Ariel had acquired. Even when they brought it back to a 4 versus 2, do you still have two players that combined for 51 HP? That's not something that's good going into these gunfights. And it takes a lot of the pressure for perfect aim in these clutch situations off of the Ungs. They're able to go for body shots and keep these players in terrible, terrible positions. And plus, they honestly just both players were in the perfect spots to lock that out as well. They didn't have to rotate around or take awkward gunfights. They had the positioning they needed, and they could even work off of each other with the positions they have. And it really is just a terrible position for Ariel to be in, especially now that Unks have map and match point. Again, Ariel can win 3 rounds in a row and bring this to overtime. But so far, even in what looked like it was going to be a very convincing Ariel round, the Unks have just been on top of their game.
Yeah, not only do you want to be in the position where you have to win 3 rounds in a row, but I think it's fair to say that Ariel's a team that builds off momentum extremely well. In this entire game, it's felt like that's being stumped by the Unks at every turn. So it is dire straits for Aerial Rise, and they're going to have to change something. I don't know if it's the issue of not playing trades well enough, because the Unks have been excellent about that. Every single round that there's been a pick that goes to the side of Aerial Rise, very rarely is it not almost immediately traded back by the defense. And now with the clash, Stuz can be able to get that information. I say that though, but that information isn't going to be enough to save Scary, as that position on the top floor where the objective itself is now damaged.
So you had a couple attempts to get it back, but so far none of them are successful. Scary being taken off the board immediately. And now Ariel have a lot of control over on this side of the map. The Youngsters still tempting fate. They want this pick on Epic, but he hasn't given anything up just yet. They still have to get control of this mezzanine area. But the Monty rather, that Kiru has brought should make this a little bit easier. Brios as well can get onto this library window and look to help with that as well.
And Aerial Rise now going to be working this first pick to perfection. Brios picking up the head of Dead. And now it's looking really, really good for them. This could be the round to kind of start off that cascading effect we've seen, as the Unks have a player on 5 HP, a Clash in Zolaris to make it work. That Clash, while it's super good and you have the supporting teammates right now, is going to be in a very, very rough predicament. Epic taking down that 5 HP off the board. Zolaris trying to pick up a kill for himself, and now it's a 4v1 against the Clash. There's not much she can do besides fall into the corner and give that round over to Aerial Rise. The first step that they need to try and bring this game into overtime.
Yeah, I think so. A couple things there. I think we're starting to see a couple players on the Unks get a little bit too cocky for their own good. Specifically, Scary, just with the positioning he had, trying to get back to the side of putting on those frost mats. Not great. Gives with that opening pick. And as well, Ariel kind of, I think, leaned into that, like, as you called it, the touch and go play style a little bit there, trying to get all their ducks in a row before moving on to the next step in the round, so the Unks couldn't find gaps to to aggress onto or push them back as effectively. That Monty as well also just made it very difficult for the Unks to push back on Ariel because you have this big moving wall that's actively feeding information to your teammates that your opponents have to peek into. Now, though, the Unks do get to go back to the basement, which was a very convincing win for them the last time they played it.
Yeah, they had Matt all the way on that top floor, kind of being that surefire roamer, and he got a couple kills later into the round. But what gave them the most success was actually just that space they got on the main breach. Ariel is going to be aware of this time. Rather, the Unks are going to be aware of this. I bite my tongue. I'm apparently getting lost at which team I'm watching or which side. Nonetheless, that main breach was really, really effective the last time we saw this site brought. So both teams are going to be aware of that. And Ariel's utility is actually catered to what we typically see them do on this site, and that's a little bit of a split take. You have that pressure built up on the main breach, you have the ace rotate to the backside for those supplementary breaches, and it's exactly what they're going to do. The Thatcher's going to head with the ace, and I'd imagine that the other members of Aerial Rise are going to get pressure elsewhere. It's just keeping tabs on the roamers that the Unks are bringing to really try and make sure you don't lose one of these utility operators too early.
They've managed to avoid getting a spawn peek this time. They've also pushed the roamers back from the initial positions they were holding, which obviously isn't a dead roamer, but it is much safer to not have Scary and Engage trying to peek you with Boss G and T5. Even though Engage does look to get a little bit more aggressive back onto the area he's pushed out from, just the fact that Ariel have taken this space is going to be very good for them, especially with Epic able to successfully get into the building itself and start taking this space.
And yet, as that space is being taken, all is quiet across the chalet right now. Engage. Just biding his time. Aerial Rise is going to start trying to work this vertical. They haven't thrown, I believe, any ram boogies just yet to try and make sure that's put in place. The mirror window over here in dining is going to be cleared, and that's the Kaid Claw off the boiler breach. And this Goyo can should be popped. There we go. Took a couple of shots for Kira. That only is going to force the pillar player back, but eliminate the stall later in the round. And here those boogies come, making it the floor Swiss cheese, and more importantly, incredibly dangerous now for these site players. There's so many angles you're going to have to worry about, and the double breach is going to come through from Aerial Rise here, and I'd imagine they move pretty quickly. You have a couple players upstairs, making sure that this roam game from Engage doesn't come back to bite them like it did last round. And not only that, they have so many opportunities to get in sight. Zolaris not able to find the head of Kiru. A great swing from him, and this should be easily the diffuser going down. Filling the position, another great pre-fire from Kiru onto the head of Sta. Matt Siege, the roamer, Engage, he falls in the meantime as well, not having the impact he hoped. Scary, his teammate as well. Kiru's going to make sure his body catches a couple of extra rounds to prove a point, and it's dead from Blue, who is going to himself die. A flawless round for Ariel. They seem to be taking flight right here.
Give me a timeout coming out from the Unks in response, which I think this is a pretty good place to take that tactical timeout. They are still ahead in rounds, but only by one this time, and it gives them an opportunity to just sit back and discuss how they want to close this out. What is it that we want to do this round to lock this out and beat one of the most, I guess, prestigious T2 orgs in history is the way to put it. An org that has been through a lot. We can take down their team now. Let's just solidify the strategy and start to figure that out. Because Ariel have started to find their groove again. They've won 2 rounds in a row to bring us to the 6-5 scoreline. And you want to try to stem that momentum as much as you can.
That's something I was touching on a little bit earlier, too. Ariel specifically is one of those teams where once they get into their groove and find their rhythm, it is so hard to shut them down. So Unks was kind of building off that initially of they were catching a spawn peak and awkward timing onto Ariel, finding a good pick, and that was really putting Ariel on the back foot and kind of slowing them down a little bit, both on the attack and the defense. But now Ariel's found their footing. They're climbing that mountain up toward the back of Unks. They're looking to take that lead, and now you're absolutely right. The Unks are like, okay, we can shut this down in regulation. We don't want to worry about overtime here. Let's think. Aerial Rise has been returning to their roots, They're playing that touch and go, gain information, and then hit, take space, whatever you want to call it, wherever it needs to be for Aerial Arise, both on the site and off it. The roam game that was having so much impact for the Unks isn't being felt right now because of this shift we've seen from Aerial. So really analyzing how to find that success they were having in those initial defensive rounds to close it out in regulation here. They head back toward Kitchen Dive.
This was a site that was fairly convincing win for Ariel. The first time we saw it, although it did come at about like 5 seconds left, is I think I had to call it the 20-second meta.
It was close.
Yeah, it was an absolute rundown of the time where it was scary, eventually getting pinched out and killed off. So see if Ariel are able to work things just a little bit faster than they were before. So I'm just going to know that with the way they kind of like to play, Ariel can sometimes leave a lot of time on the table, or not leave a lot of time on the table is I guess a better way to say it. And so if they can just look to delay for that little bit longer than they did previously, that could be the thing that's able to shut down that momentum. But the Monty is designed to stop exactly that, and that's why Ariel's been leaning into it so heavily. It makes clearing these roams significantly easier when you just have a wall that your teammates can stand behind that can push forwards.
And we can see that immediate change of pacing here from Ariel. Having the Monty, it is still within the 2-minute mark, a 3-minute mark rather, and they've already taken all the way upwards. They have that Cases area locked in control. They've pushed out the, I believe it was the, oh, excuse me, the Malusi, there we go. My brain forgetting the word. They pushed Malusi out of this Cases area, and now are pretty much free to work the breach as much as they want. And gaining the floor, control of this top floor is once again crucial to their strategy here, right? We saw them work their way into that mid floor after they got control of the top floor last round they were here, but there's 3 players up here this time, and they're playing really, really safe.
Worry of the player on big window. Engage going to be looking that way. Worries of players over onto mezzanine as well. You don't need complete control of the top floor, like I said previously, but you do need enough to stop the defense from controlling the necessary vert. We do see Ariel, though, look to try to take a lot more of this top floor, which is very time-consuming, and that is going to be something that the Unks are aware of. But that opening pick from Inrio is exactly what they need to get this started and try to push out these last 2 defenders.
He's going to cruise on by. The mirror window working against the defense here. It's going to be Engage taken down. Now Zolaris to fall in turn. A huge Nitro Cell from Sta, though. What I thought was going to be an aerial sweep on its site has been stumped by a single Nitro Cell from the bottom floor. And now, what was a huge advantage toward the side of Ariel is the Unks having the ability to lock it down here. 35 seconds left on the clock. It's the Thatcher Thermite duo. They're going to have just enough to start working this vert, trying to put you in some uncomfortable positions, and they also might have the opportunity to get that main breach open, but that's the least of the worries here for Aerial Arise right now. They're worried about the clock. They spent so much time upstairs. They got 3 picks to show for it. It was going to be the cleanest take, and now it's a 2v2. Flashbangs coming through that hatch, trying to force Dead away from this B-bomb site. He's left on 20 HP. They're going to drop. It's going to be a very fast swing from Dead, though. Couple shots into the chest of Inro, and he's going to fall to the wayside. Snake, in the objective all by his lonesome, finds the head of Sta. There's no case in his pocket. There's no time on his clock. The Malusi trap to slow him down, and it's not going to be enough. The Unks take it away from Ariel in their last breath.
The Nitro Cell heard around the world to effectively end all the momentum that Ariel had built up in those previous 3 rounds to close things out. Great discipline from Dead as well to just stay in his position and lean into that Malusi jammer and prevent Snake from being able to take that fight. Because he is good enough that he probably could have won it if he had enough time, but ends up closing things out nonetheless. That's really good stuff from the Unks to continue their streak. 3-0 now, I believe, inside of Xenon. And also their second T2 team beaten in a row. Very impressive stuff from them.
And I said at the start of this game, they've been kind of showing up and putting some of these veteran teams, I won't say to shame, but surprising them to say the very least, of a team like the Unks with a name like that too, kind of, oh, it's a meme team, it's somebody who's gonna come around and they might have some interesting strategies, but they've been putting they've been wiping the smiles off the faces of T2 teams. They've now taken out Arial, they took out Karn & Co, and it's been a really, really great showing for them so far. And in that game, I think it proves to a T. The entire time, it felt like they had control of Arial Rise, and then as soon as Arial started picking up momentum, they had the perfect solution and the strategy that you talked about. Even though they lost that control top floor, having the intuition to throw the Nitro Cell there, and then not overextend on that 2v2, but to realize, okay, we have the time advantage now. The picks they got upstairs are meaningless at this point. We just have to play back, play patient. The breach isn't open. We are set. And it's something we saw them do that entire match. And Arial Rise did have that little streak there in the middle, find that momentum coming back, the strategy that we know them for. But at the end of the day, the UNCs just seemed to take it away and sweep it out from Arial's feet at that very last moment.
Well done to the UNCs yet again for doing not the unthinkable, but the highly improbable, just being the Grim Reaper so far of Xenon. That being said, though, Swan and I are going to send things over to a quick break just to get the next map ready. We aren't going anywhere yet, though, because we do have it 774 versus Karn & Co. So make sure that you get up, get a drink, whatever you need, but be right back.